The gap between knowing and doing is where most dreams disappear. That isn't just a line, it's a reality you've seen in your own life. You already know what steps would improve your health, your work, your relationships, yet too often you hold back. You tell yourself you'll start tomorrow, and tomorrow keeps moving further away. That small delay becomes the reason so many people live frustrated, because the truth is this: knowledge without action changes nothing. Ask yourself, how many times have you said you would change, but you never followed through? How many ideas stayed in your head, but never became real? That's the gap, and it's costing you more than you realize. In this video, you'll discover how to close that gap once and for all. If you're tired of watching time pass while your goals remain undone, stay with me. This message can help you finally turn knowing into doing. Chapter 1. Close the gap by acting the moment you learn. When you hear the phrase, the gap between knowing and doing, it strikes something deep inside, because most people already know what to do. They know the foods they should eat, the hours they should sleep, the habits they should break, the conversations they should have, the books they should read, and the actions they should take. Knowledge is not scarce. Information is everywhere. You have advice from teachers, parents, mentors, books, podcasts, seminars, videos, and even your own experience. Knowing is not the problem. The problem is the moment after you know when you should act, but you hesitate. That hesitation, that delay, is the gap, and in that gap is where most dreams disappear. Think about how often you've read or heard something that made perfect sense. You nodded your head. You agreed. You said, "That's true." And then you went back to your day and did the same things you've always done. Nothing changed. Knowledge by itself didn't transform you because you didn't cross the bridge into action. That's the tragedy of most lives. Knowing without doing. If you're honest, you can recall many times when you had the answer in your hand but never applied it. That's the difference between people who succeed and people who don't. Success is rarely about knowing more. It's about acting faster on what you already know. I want you to picture a moment when you felt inspired to change something in your life. Maybe you decided you'd start exercising, maybe you'd save money, maybe you'd cut out the distractions and get serious about your work. At that moment, you had energy, you had clarity, you had certainty. But then you thought, I'll start tomorrow. I'll do it after this week. I'll wait until things settle down. And the longer you waited, the weaker the energy became. Soon, the decision faded. You fell back into old patterns. That's the cost of the gap. Dreams don't die because you lack knowledge. They die because you refuse to act at the moment you should. You must train yourself to shorten that gap until it disappears. The moment you learn, you act. When you read about a practice that can help you, you try it the same day. When you decide on a change, you start it in the next hour. When you see an opportunity, you step into it without waiting for perfect conditions. This habit, the habit of immediate action, changes everything because it locks knowledge into your behavior. It turns ideas into habits. It makes growth automatic. Many people believe they need more preparation before they can begin. They say they must read one more book, watch one more video, or wait for the right time. Preparation has its place, but preparation can also be an excuse. If you already know what to do, the smartest thing is to start. If you wait, you're teaching yourself to live in hesitation. If you start, you're teaching yourself to live in action, and the brain learns. Every delay trains hesitation. Every action trains courage. You don't need to start big. You need to start now. Action is not about doing everything at once. It's about taking the next clear step. If you learn that drinking water instead of soda improves your health, grab a glass of water today. If you know that waking up early gives you time to work on your goals, set your alarm tonight and honor it tomorrow. If you discovered that writing down your tasks keeps you focused, then write down 3 things you'll do after this video ends. These may seem small, but they're powerful because they shrink the gap between knowing and doing. That's how you build momentum. The psychology of hesitation is simple. When you delay, you give your mind time to negotiate. It will tell you you're tired, you're not ready, you can do it later. That negotiation grows stronger the longer you wait. The way to beat it is by acting before it takes hold. Action silences excuses. Action removes doubt. Action creates clarity. Most people wait for confidence before they act. But confidence doesn't come first. Confidence is the result of action repeated over time. Think about the times in your life when you did follow through immediately. How did it feel? It felt strong. It felt real. You respected yourself more. You proved that you could rely on yourself. That self-respect is priceless. Each time you close the gap, you build it. And self-respect is what fuels discipline. Without it, you live in regret, telling yourself you'll change someday. But someday is not on the calendar. There's only today. The great danger is that you can know for years without doing. You can keep collecting information, keep attending seminars, keep listening to talks, and never apply. You can trick yourself into feeling productive while your dreams silently die. This is why so many people reach the end of their lives with frustration. They knew, but they never did. Don't let that be your story. Close the gap while you still have time. Every improvement you want in your life depends on this principle. If you want better health, act on the knowledge you already have. If you want financial security, act on what you already know about earning, saving, and investing. If you want stronger relationships, act on what you already know about listening, caring, and being present. Stop waiting for another reminder. You've already been told. The missing piece is your action. I'm telling you this because I know how easy it is to drift. I know how easy it is to say, "Tomorrow I'll start." But tomorrow is the most dangerous word. It kills more dreams than failure ever will. Knowledge without action creates regret. Action, even imperfect action, creates progress. And progress creates a future you can be proud of. If you start applying this today, your life changes quickly. When you read something useful, you'll apply it. When you hear advice, you'll test it. When you discover a better way, you'll practice it. You'll no longer be stuck in the endless cycle of knowing more but staying the same. You'll become a person of action. And once that happens, success follows. Now think about your own life. Where are you stuck between knowing and doing? What have you been postponing? What decision have you made in your mind but not lived in your actions? Write it down, name it, and then take one step toward it today. It doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be final. It just needs to be real. If you do this, you break the pattern of hesitation. You start living in action. Close the gap by acting the moment you learn. Make this your way of life. Refuse to leave knowledge unused. Refuse to let your dreams fade in the waiting room of hesitation. Success will not come because you know more. It will come because you act faster on what you know. Knowledge is potential. Action is power. And when you bring them together, you become unstoppable. The distance between your current life and the life you want is not years away. It's not knowledge you don't have. It's the few seconds between learning and acting. Shorten that time. Make it immediate. The moment you know, move. That's how you protect your dreams. That's how you build your future. That's how you close the gap between knowing and doing so. Your dreams don't disappear, but become your reality. Chapter 2. Stop losing dreams by delaying what you already know. Most people don't lose their dreams because they lacked talent or opportunity. They lose them because they kept delaying what they already knew they needed to do. The knowledge was there. The answer was clear. The next step was obvious, but they put it off. They said later. They said, when I'm ready. They said, when things calm down. But life doesn't wait. The longer you delay, the further your dream drifts, until one day it's gone. Dreams don't usually disappear in one big moment. They slowly fade away every time you delay what you already know must be done. Think about your own life for a moment. How many times have you promised yourself you would change something? You knew exactly what was holding you back. You even felt the weight of the decision. But instead of acting, you delayed. Maybe you said you'd start that business next year. Maybe you said you'd get serious about your health when you had more time. Maybe you told yourself you'd save money once you started earning more. Every one of those delays cost you more than you realize. Because while you were waiting, time kept moving, opportunity kept passing, energy kept fading, and your dream, which once felt alive, grew weaker with every postponement. Human psychology is simple in this area. When you delay, you train your mind to believe there is no urgency. And when urgency disappears, discipline disappears with it. Your brain learns to think, I can always do it later. That thought is the most dangerous lie. Later becomes tomorrow, tomorrow becomes next week, and next week becomes next year. Before you know it, the window of opportunity has closed. People convince themselves they'll have another chance, but the truth is, many chances never return. The cost of delay is often permanent. The real tragedy is that people usually don't delay because they don't know what to do. They delay because they don't want the discomfort that comes with starting. Action feels heavy. Action means sacrifice. Action requires effort. So they choose the lighter path, postponement. But here's the reality. The discomfort of action is temporary. The discomfort of regret lasts forever. You can either face the effort now or carry the weight of regret later. And regret weighs much more than effort ever will. When you keep delaying, you also lose momentum. Dreams are fragile. They need energy to survive. Every time you act quickly on what you know, you feed the dream. It grows stronger. But every time you delay, you starve it. That's why people lose motivation. It's not that their dream wasn't important. It's that they delayed so long that the energy that once drove them faded away. Delayed action creates a silent death for dreams. Ask yourself, how many people do you know who keep talking about what they're going to do? They say, one day I'll start my own company. One day I'll write that book. One day I'll change my career. Years later, they're still saying the same thing. Their dream disappeared, not because they didn't know what to do, but because they never acted on what they knew. They delayed so long that the dream lost life. Don't let that happen to you. If you want to protect your dream, you must learn to move quickly on the knowledge you already have. If you know you need to improve your health, start today with something simple. If you know you need to repair a relationship, have the conversation this week. If you know your future depends on better habits, begin now, not next month, not next year. The people who live their dreams are not the ones who know more than everyone else. They are the ones who refuse to delay what they already know. The danger of delay is that it feels safe. You convince yourself that postponement is harmless because you still plan to do it later. But delay has a hidden cost. It kills urgency, it weakens discipline, and it creates a pattern. The more you delay, the easier it becomes to delay again. Soon, postponement is no longer a decision, it's a habit, and habits shape destiny. If you build the habit of delay, your destiny will be filled with regret. If you build the habit of immediate action, your destiny will be filled with progress. One of the strongest forms of self-respect comes from acting quickly on what you know is right. When you delay, you create an inner conflict. You know you should act, but you don't. That gap between knowledge and behavior destroys trust in yourself. You begin to doubt your own word. You stop believing your own promises. That is why so many people live frustrated lives. They don't trust themselves anymore. But when you stop delaying and start acting, you repair that trust. You prove to yourself that your word means something. You prove that when you know, you do. That confidence spills into every area of your life. Another danger of delay is that life doesn't pause for you. Time keeps moving. Conditions keep changing. The opportunity you think will still be there may vanish. The energy you think you'll still have may fade. The resources you think you'll always access may dry up. Dreams have an expiration date, even if you can't see it. The delay you thought was harmless can be the very reason you never get the chance again. That's why people look back years later and say, "I should have started then." Those words are heavy. Don't give yourself a reason to say them. There's a simple principle that separates achievers from dreamers. Achievers act quickly on what they know. Dreamers delay. Achievers don't always feel ready. They don't always have the perfect plan. But they start. And once they start, momentum builds. Dreamers wait for readiness. They wait for certainty. But those conditions never come. Delay becomes their permanent state. And eventually, the dream slips away unnoticed. If you want to change your life, focus on one powerful shift. Cut out delay. When you recognize what you need to do, do it. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until conditions are perfect. Don't wait until you feel like it. Action creates clarity. Delay creates confusion. Action creates confidence. Delay creates doubt. The more you act, the easier it becomes to act again. The more you delay, the harder it becomes to break the cycle. Remember this truth. Your future is shaped in the small choices you make each day. Every time you delay, you teach yourself that your dreams are not urgent. Every time you act, you teach yourself that your dreams are worth fighting for. Which lesson do you want to teach yourself? The choice is always yours. If you look back on your life so far, you'll see the proof. The things you acted on quickly grew into progress. The things you delayed are still waiting, or worse, they're gone. Don't waste more years repeating the same mistake. Stop losing dreams by delaying what you already know. You know enough right now to begin. Don't fall into the trap of waiting for one more sign, one more piece of information, one more perfect condition. Nothing changes until you act. I want you to think right now about one area of your life where you've been delaying. It could be your health, your finances, your career, or your relationships. You already know what needs to be done. You've known for a long time. Write it down. Acknowledge it. Then take one real step today. Send the message. Make the call. Do the workout. Open the savings account. Write the first page. Don't overthink it. Just move. Because if you don't, that dream will slip further away, just like all the others you delayed. Life rewards urgency. Life rewards people who act on knowledge. The world doesn't give the prize to the one who knew the most. It gives it to the one who did the most with what they knew. Don't keep piling up knowledge while your dreams fade. Stop the delay. Turn your knowing into doing. Protect your dream before it disappears. When you stop delaying, something incredible happens. You gain momentum. One action leads to another. You begin to feel alive again. Your energy grows. Your discipline strengthens. Your confidence rises. That's how you change your life, one immediate action at a time. So stop losing dreams by delaying what you already know. Your dream is waiting for you, but it won't wait forever. Move today. Act today. Start today. Because the only thing standing between you and the life you want is the delay you've allowed for too long. Chapter 3. Turn knowledge into action. Before hesitation takes control, knowledge has value only when it moves into action. The real danger for most people is not ignorance, but hesitation. Hesitation appears in the quiet seconds after you learn something valuable or make a decision. At first you feel the push to do it, but then your mind steps in and begins to stall. It starts whispering reasons to wait, to reconsider, to think about it later, and in those small moments, hesitation robs you of progress. The opportunity to act is right there in your hands, but you freeze. You tell yourself you'll get to it later. Yet later rarely comes. That delay becomes the first step toward losing momentum, and once momentum is gone, knowledge is wasted. Every person knows this feeling. You read a book and discover a strategy that could change your daily routine. For a moment you imagine yourself applying it, but then your phone rings, or your mind tells you it's too much effort right now. Days pass, and that strategy sits untouched. What happened? You didn't lack understanding. You lacked execution. Hesitation stepped in and stole the chance to make the knowledge real. Hesitation feels small, but its impact is enormous. One decision held back leads to another. Over time you train yourself to think, but not to act. This is why so many people say, I know what I should be doing, I just don't do it. The problem isn't knowledge. The problem is the pattern of hesitation. Once it takes hold, it becomes automatic, and automatic hesitation destroys dreams one choice at a time. To change your life, you must break that pattern. The moment knowledge enters your mind, attach it to action before hesitation can interfere. The faster you connect learning to doing, the stronger the habit becomes. Action doesn't need to be perfect. It doesn't need to be complete. It just needs to begin. Starting creates energy. Beginning, even in a small way, shuts the door on hesitation. Think about the way children operate. A child hears something, and they try it immediately. They don't overanalyze, they don't overthink, they just test it out. That willingness to move quickly keeps them growing. Adults, on the other hand, drown in hesitation. They analyze, they debate, they wait for certainty, and in doing so, they lose the speed that makes knowledge powerful. Growth slows down not because people stop learning, but because they stop turning learning into movement. If you want real change, you must give yourself a rule. The moment you gain a useful piece of knowledge, act on it. Don't wait until tomorrow. Don't wait until you feel like it. Action creates the feeling, not the other way around. People make the mistake of waiting for motivation, but motivation is not the spark. Action is the spark. Once you take the step, motivation follows. Hesitation kills motivation before it can even show up. Think of times in your life when you didn't hesitate. Maybe you had an idea, and you acted immediately. You made the call, you started the project, you signed up for the class. Those moments probably changed something meaningful for you. Why? Because hesitation never had time to step in. You moved fast, and the action created results. On the other hand, think of the times you hesitated. You probably lost the energy you once felt. What seemed urgent yesterday suddenly felt optional today. That's the power of hesitation. It drains energy. It convinces you to stay the same. Hesitation also feeds doubt. When you hesitate, your mind fills the gap with fear. You start asking, what if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if this doesn't work? Those questions don't appear when you're acting. They appear when you're stalling. The longer you wait, the louder the questions grow. Soon you've talked yourself out of something you once believed in. That is how people lose years of progress. Not by making wrong choices, but by making no choices at all. Knowledge without action is like fuel without fire. It sits unused. The only way to light it is by doing something with it. Each time you apply knowledge, you create a chain reaction. You prove to yourself that you can act. You reinforce the habit of execution, and every small action builds confidence. Confidence doesn't come from thinking about action, it comes from living it. To turn knowledge into action before hesitation takes control, you must build systems around yourself. Don't rely on memory or mood. If you read something valuable, write it down and apply it that same day. If you decide on a new habit, attach it to something you already do. For example, if you want to start exercising, tie it to waking up. If you want to start reading more, tie it to the time you normally watch television. The faster you connect new knowledge to real life, the less space hesitation has to grow. Another strategy is to shrink the action. Many people hesitate because the step looks too big. They imagine the whole mountain instead of the first step. Break it down. If you learned that journaling increases clarity, don't tell yourself you need to write 3 pages every day. Start with 2 sentences tonight. That small act keeps hesitation from winning. Once you begin, it's easier to expand. The key is movement. You also need accountability. Share your intention with someone you respect. Tell them what you learned and how you're going to act on it. By speaking it out, you create a commitment outside of yourself. That pressure makes hesitation weaker. Alone, it's easy to delay. With accountability, you're far more likely to follow through. Notice the pattern of hesitation in your own life. Where do you stall the most? Do you hesitate when it comes to health? Do you hesitate in your career? Do you hesitate in relationship? Once you see the pattern, you can attack it directly. For example, if you know you hesitate to speak up, give yourself a rule to voice 1 thought in every meeting. If you know you hesitate to start projects, give yourself a deadline of 24 hours to take the first step. Awareness breaks the cycle, but action ends it. Remember, knowledge is multiplying faster than ever. Every day, new information is available, but information doesn't guarantee change. People can spend their entire lives swimming in knowledge, but never move forward, because hesitation is stronger than their will to act. Don't allow yourself to fall into that trap. Use knowledge as fuel, but strike the match immediately. Don't give hesitation space to breathe. You will find that the more you practice immediate action, the easier it becomes. At first, hesitation will fight back. It will try to slow you down, but if you commit to moving quickly, you'll retrain your brain. You'll condition yourself to respond with action instead of delay. Soon the habit of acting becomes natural. You won't need to think about it. Knowledge will trigger movement automatically. That's how growth becomes consistent. The people you admire are not always the smartest or the most educated. They are the ones who close the gap between knowing and doing. They learn something, and they act on it right away. They don't wait for everything to line up. They don't let hesitation sit in the driver's seat. That's why they move ahead, while others stay stuck. Your challenge is to ask yourself, where am I hesitating right now? What knowledge have I gained that I haven't acted on? What decision have I postponed? Write it down, then take 1 action before today ends. It doesn't matter how small, that single move will break the grip of hesitation. And once you do it again tomorrow, and the next day, you will notice how much stronger you feel. There is power in immediacy. Life rewards speed. Not reckless speed, but the kind of speed that connects knowledge to action without pause. Every time you move quickly, you make progress. Every time you delay, you lose ground. The choice is clear. Turn knowledge into action before hesitation takes control. Protect your growth. Guard your future. Don't give hesitation another victory. Your dreams depend on this habit. You don't need to know more. You don't need to wait for the right mood. You don't need permission. You need action, and you need it before hesitation whispers in your ear. The gap is small, but it is deadly. Close it fast. Use what you learn, and use it now. That is how you build a life of achievement, not a life of regret. Chapter 4. Take immediate steps instead of repeating the same intention. How many times have you told yourself you were going to change? You said you'd start tomorrow, you'd begin next week, you'd get serious after this season of life. You repeated the same intentions again and again. And each time you repeated the intention without taking a step, you weakened your own trust in yourself. Repeating an intention might give you a short burst of hope, but without action it turns into frustration. That is why so many people live years making the same promises to themselves, but never moving forward. The cycle of repeating intention without action is one of the main reasons dreams never come to life. It's easy to feel progress when you say what you're going to do. Speaking it or thinking it gives you a sense of direction, but that sense is false if you don't back it with immediate steps. Real progress comes only when you turn that statement into movement. A person who acts on one small step is ahead of the person who has repeated the same intention for years. And the danger of repeating intention is that it gives you the illusion of growth. You tell yourself you are serious about your goals, but your daily life doesn't reflect it. Without action, seriousness is just talk. Taking immediate steps is about building credibility with yourself. Every time you move from intention to action, you reinforce the belief that you can trust your word. That trust is powerful. It fuels discipline and creates momentum. On the other hand, when you keep repeating intentions without acting, you destroy that trust. Deep inside you know you've said this before. You've made the same promise, and you didn't keep it. So the next time you say it, you don't believe it as strongly. That erosion of self-belief is dangerous. Once you no longer believe your own intentions, it becomes harder to act even when you want to. There's a principle you need to live by. Never leave an intention without attaching it to a step. If you say you'll start exercising, take one action immediately. Put your shoes by the door, do a 5-minute workout, or schedule tomorrow's session on your calendar. If you say you'll improve your finances, take the first step today. Open the account, track today's expenses, or cut one unnecessary cost. The step doesn't need to be big, but it must be real. Without that real step, the intention is just noise. The human mind loves to repeat intentions because it feels safe. Speaking your goals is easier than acting on them. Action means risk. Action means discomfort. Action means work. But if you avoid those by repeating the same phrases over and over, you're just rehearsing your future regrets. At some point, you will look back and see that you said the same things year after year, while nothing changed. And that realization is painful. It's the moment you understand you had the power all along, but you never used it. The way to avoid this trap is to create a habit of acting right away. If you decide on something, don't wait until conditions are perfect. Begin with what you have. Begin with where you are. The smallest step matters because it transforms intention into action. That transformation is what breaks the cycle. Once you've acted, you're no longer repeating a statement, you're living it. Think about how momentum works. When you take a step, even a small one, you feel different. You've started something. That feeling gives you the push to take another step. But when you repeat the same intention, you feel stuck. There's no new energy because there's no movement. That's why people feel drained after making promises they don't keep. Promises without action drain energy. Steps, even small ones, create energy. People often think they need to make big leaps to see change. But big leaps are not required in the beginning. What's required is immediacy. If you want to write a book, don't repeat the intention every year. Write one page today. If you want to get healthier, don't keep saying you'll start next Monday. Prepare one healthy meal now. If you want to grow your income, don't just say you'll work harder. Identify one skill to learn and start studying tonight. These are small, but they shift your identity. You stop being someone who talks about goals and become someone who acts on them. The mind remembers every intention you repeat without action. Each one stacks up like unfinished business, and that weight pulls you down. You begin to carry a quiet burden of failure. It sits in the background of your thoughts. You may not always speak it, but you feel it. That's why many people live with constant frustration. They are carrying the weight of repeated intentions they never acted on. You don't need to carry that anymore.
You can break it by starting. Another hidden danger of repeating intentions is that it conditions the people around you to stop believing you. When you keep saying what you'll do but never follow through, others notice. They may not tell you, but they adjust their expectations. They no longer take your words serious. That loss of credibility in relationships is costly. It affects how much trust, support, and respect you receive. If you want people to take you seriously, you must prove that your intentions turn into actions. There's also an emotional cost. Each time you repeat an intention without acting, you experience a small disappointment. Alone, it may not seem significant, but over years, these disappointments add up. They create resentment toward yourself. You begin to feel like you're always behind, always failing to start. That feeling eats away at your confidence. But when you replace repeated intentions with immediate steps, you experience the opposite. You feel proud, capable, and in control. That pride builds strength for the next challenge. Life changes when you stop waiting for the right moment and begin acting in the present. Too many people are addicted to intention. They attend seminars, they read books, they listen to advice, and every time they feel inspired, they make another intention. But inspiration without action fades quickly. It disappears the moment daily life takes over. That is why people who seem motivated at an event often go back to the same routines after a week. The difference isn't knowledge, it's the lack of immediate steps. So here's the rule to live by. If you say it, start it. Don't give yourself permission to repeat an intention without pairing it with movement. Over time, this rule becomes a habit, and the habit changes your life. Instead of stacking empty promises, you stack evidence of progress, and that evidence gives you confidence. Confidence makes discipline easier. Discipline builds consistency. Consistency produces results, and results keep dreams alive. The cycle is simple. Intention repeated without action equals regret. Intention acted on immediately equals growth. Which cycle are you feeding? Each day, you have the choice. You can keep talking about what you'll do, or you can show yourself that you're serious by doing something now. When you take immediate steps, you experience a sense of alignment. Your words match your action. Your promises match your behavior. That alignment creates inner strength. You no longer feel torn between who you say you are and who you really are. You begin to live with integrity. Integrity is the foundation of lasting success. Without it, even your best intentions collapse. With it, every intention becomes a building block for your future. Think of one area in your life where you've repeated the same intention many times. It might be fitness, finances, learning, or relationship. Write down that intention one last time, but this time, pair it with a step you can do now. Don't wait until the perfect day. Begin today, even if it's small. That single step will free you from the cycle of repetition. And once you've taken one, take another tomorrow, and another the next day. Step by step, the dream you kept repeating starts to become real. Stop being the person who says it every year. Become the person who does it once and keeps building. The difference between those two is immediate action. You have the power right now to close that gap. You don't need more time. You don't need more talk. You don't need more intention. You need the courage to move in this moment. That courage is the dividing line between a life of regret and a life of achievement. So take immediate steps instead of repeating the same intention. Don't let your words become empty. Don't let your dreams die in the cycle of delay. You already know what you want. You've said it enough times. Now is the moment to act. One step today is worth more than 1,000 repeated promises. One step today begins the path to a future you can be proud of. Start it now and keep moving. That's how intentions turn into reality.
Chapter 5. Bridge the distance between planning and consistent execution daily. Planning is not difficult. Most people have notebooks, calendars, apps, or even scraps of paper filled with plans, schedules, and goals. They spend hours designing the perfect system,
organizing tasks, and outlining what needs to be done. Yet, when the day ends, they look back and realize little was actually executed. The plan looked good, but the execution was weak. This is the gap that ruins dreams, the distance between planning and doing. Planning creates clarity, but clarity without consistent execution creates disappointment. The challenge is not writing the plan. The challenge is living it every single day. Think about how many times you've made a detailed plan. You felt motivated, even proud of yourself for creating it. But then you left it untouched on your desk or inside an app. By the end of the week, the plan was forgotten, replaced by the same old habits. This cycle creates frustration because you're always preparing but rarely progressing. Plans without execution create the illusion of productivity, but they don't move you forward. To bridge the distance between planning and execution, you must treat your plan as a contract with yourself. A contract is not optional, it's binding. When you make a plan, you commit to it. If you want trust in yourself, you must honor the commitments you write down. Otherwise, planning becomes a form of self-deception. You feel like you're serious, but deep down you know you're avoiding the real work. One of the most important rules to follow is this: never make a plan you don't intend to execute today. If you write it down, do it. If you list it, complete it. This standard will immediately reduce the endless lists and push you to focus on what truly matters. Execution thrives on clarity, and clarity means knowing the difference between what's essential and what's just decoration on a page. Many people fail because they overload their plan. They write 20 tasks for the day, then finish none. A better approach is to choose 3 or 4 meaningful actions and execute them fully. Execution also requires rhythm. You can't treat work like a random event. You need patterns, habits, and rituals that make action automatic. If you plan to read daily, set a fixed time and protect it. If you plan to exercise, anchor it to your morning routine so it doesn't depend on mood or motivation. Consistency comes when you attach execution to daily rhythms, instead of leaving it to chance. Bridging the distance also means accepting that execution is rarely glamorous. Planning feels exciting because it gives you a vision of the future. Execution feels ordinary because it demands repetition. Writing down "start a business" feels thrilling. Actually sitting down to make calls, study markets, and build systems feels routine. That's why so many stop at planning. They confuse excitement with progress. But progress is hidden in the daily grind of execution, not in the burst of energy that comes with planning. Another truth is that execution will always face resistance. When you try to act on your plan, distractions appear. You feel tired, you feel uncertain, or other people pull your attention away. If you wait for perfect conditions, your plan will remain on paper. To succeed, you must expect resistance and build defenses against it. Remove distractions from your environment. Set boundaries with people who waste your time. Protect your schedule like it's sacred. Without this level of seriousness, execution dies under pressure. Daily review is another key to bridging the gap. At the end of each day, look at your plan and ask, what did I execute and what did I avoid? Don't judge yourself, but be honest. If you notice the same tasks being pushed forward day after day, that's a sign of hesitation or avoidance. Face it directly. Either commit to doing it tomorrow without fail, or remove it from your plan. A plan that keeps rolling over the same tasks becomes a graveyard of intentions. Clear it out and focus on action. Many people also struggle because they confuse planning with control. They think they can map out every detail of the journey, but life rarely works that way. Unexpected events appear. Energy levels change. Opportunities shift. A good plan allows flexibility while still demanding consistent execution. If one task becomes impossible, Replace it with another action that moves you forward. The point is to never end a day without execution. Flexibility keeps momentum alive, but excuses kill it. Accountability can strengthen execution. Share your plan with a trusted friend, mentor, or partner. Tell them what you're going to do today and check in afterward. Knowing someone will ask you about your progress creates pressure to act. It removes the option of quietly ignoring your plan. External accountability builds internal discipline until the habit is strong enough to stand alone. There's also a mental shift required. You must start viewing execution as non-negotiable. Just as you wouldn't skip brushing your teeth, you shouldn't skip executing your daily plan. Treat it as part of who you are, not just something you try to do. Identity drives behavior. If you see yourself as someone who executes, you'll act in alignment with that identity. Plans will no longer be wishes, they'll be commands. Another danger to avoid is perfectionism. Perfection keeps you trapped in planning mode because nothing ever feels ready enough to execute. You keep refining the plan, adjusting the details, preparing endlessly, but execution doesn't require perfection. It requires progress. Even imperfect action beats endless planning. You can always adjust once you've started, but you can't adjust something that never existed. Execution reveals what works and what doesn't. Planning only imagines. If you examine the lives of highly effective people, you'll see a common thread. They don't just make plans, they live them. They wake up and do what they said they would do. Their days are filled with follow-through. This is why their results compound over time. Small, consistent execution builds extraordinary outcomes. Meanwhile, those who only plan stay in the same place year after year, trapped in the illusion of preparation. Bridging the gap also requires emotional control. Some days you won't feel like execute. Emotions can pull you away from discipline. But execution isn't about feelings, it's about decisions. Feelings are temporary. If you let them control your action, your results will be inconsistent. Decide that execution is bigger than emotion. Do it whether you feel like it or not. That decision separates professionals from amateurs. Let's talk about urgency. Without urgency, execution collapses. If your plan doesn't feel urgent, you'll postpone it. That's why deadlines matter. Set clear, realistic deadlines for your tasks. Give each action a time, not just a date. Work on project is vague. Complete outline by 2 p.m. is specific. Specific deadlines create pressure, and pressure produces action. Remember, your dream doesn't depend on how well you plan. It depends on how consistently you execute. Execution transforms ideas into results. Execution builds skill. Execution creates evidence of progress. Without it, you are left with piles of notes, journals, and intentions that never shape reality. Don't let your life become a museum of unused plans. Bridge the gap by acting on them every day. Right now, think of one plan you've been carrying around. Maybe it's a business idea, a health goal, or a personal project. You've planned it many times. You've told yourself you'll start. But have you executed? If not, start today. Choose one step, however small, and do it. Execution is not about finishing everything at once. It's about proving to yourself that you can live your plan. Once you take that first step, take another tomorrow, and another after that. Soon, execution becomes your lifestyle. The difference between a dreamer and a doer is simple. The dreamer keeps planning. The doer executes daily. Which one will you be? The world doesn't reward intentions. It rewards consistent results. You already know what to do. The bridge between your plan and your dream is execution. Build that bridge every day.
Chapter 6. Turn clear decisions into action before doubt slows you down. Decisions carry power, but only when they are followed by action. A clear decision without action is like a promise you never intend to keep.
Many people make decisions that could change their lives, yet they wait, and while they wait, doubt begins to whisper. At first, the decision feels strong and unshakable, but the longer you delay, the weaker it becomes. Doubt loves delay. It uses the time between decision and action to plant questions, to create hesitation, and to build fear. That is why the most important thing you can do after making a clear decision is to act before doubt has the chance to slow you down. Think about moments in your own life when you felt certain about a choice. Maybe you decided to start a new habit, leave behind something unhealthy, or pursue a goal that mattered to you. In that first moment, you felt clarity. You knew it was right. But then you waited. In the waiting, your mind started creating reasons not to move. What was once a strong decision became something you questioned. Soon, you lost the energy to act. That's how many dreams are lost, not because the decision was wrong, but because the decision was delayed. The human mind is skilled at creating doubt. Doubt asks questions like, what if I fail? What if I'm not ready? What if others don't approve? What if this is the wrong time? These questions don't appear when you are acting. They appear in the silence of delay. The longer you wait, the louder they become. This is why immediate action is so important. Action silences doubt. When you move, you stop debating and start progressing. Doubt cannot thrive in motion. Turning decisions into action doesn't require massive steps right away. It requires immediacy. If you decide to take control of your health, the action might be throwing away the junk food in your kitchen today. If you decide to grow your finances, the action might be setting aside a small amount of money this week. If you decide to improve your skills, the action might be signing up for the course right now. The key is that you don't leave a decision without attaching it to movement. Otherwise, the decision dissolves into another unfulfilled intention. Clarity of decision gives you strength, but the strength fades when you wait too long. The mind treats delayed decisions as optional, and optional commitments rarely last. When you act immediately, you reinforce the seriousness of your decision. You prove to yourself that you mean what you say. That proof builds confidence, and confidence feeds more action. The cycle becomes self-reinforcing, but if you allow doubt to creep in, the cycle works in reverse. Delay feeds hesitation. Hesitation feeds fear, and fear leads to inaction. Another reason people fail to turn decisions into action is the search for perfect timing. They say, I'll start when I feel more ready. I'll act when conditions improve. But there is no perfect time. Waiting for ideal conditions in another disguise for doubt. The truth is, clarity is the perfect time. If the decision is clear, the moment to act is now. Action creates readiness. You become prepared by moving forward, not by sitting still. You also need to recognize the difference between thinking and deciding. Many people confuse the two. Thinking is considering options. Deciding is choosing one and cutting off the others. Once you've decided, you don't go back into endless thinking. You move forward. If you keep thinking after deciding, you reopen the door for doubt. That's why people live stuck in circles. They decide, then doubt, then rethink, then delay. Breaking that cycle requires immediate action to lock in the decision. There is also the problem of overcommitment. Some people make too many decisions at once and act on none of them. They overwhelm themselves with options, and the weight of so many choices leads to paralysis. A better approach is to make one clear decision and move on it right away. Once you've built momentum, you can add more. Progress builds best when it's focused, not scattered. Doubt also thrives in isolation. When you keep your decisions private, you leave room to back out quietly. But when you share your decision with someone you respect, you create accountability. That accountability pushes you to act before doubt convinces you otherwise. You don't want to be seen as someone who makes empty statements, so you move. Accountability doesn't replace discipline, but it strengthens it until discipline becomes second nature. Notice how you feel after you've delayed a decision. It doesn't feel good. It lingers in your mind. It weighs on you like unfinished business. That weight grows heavier with time. Now compare that with how you feel after taking immediate action on a decision. Even if the action is small, you feel relief. You feel progress. You feel lighter. That is the difference between carrying the burden of doubt and carrying the strength of action. Turning decisions into action also builds trust with yourself. Many people don't follow through on their decisions, and over time, they stop believing in their own word. They no longer trust themselves to keep promises. That lack of self-trust is devastating, because it makes every new decision weaker than the last. But every time you act immediately, you rebuild that trust. You show yourself that you mean what you say. That creates a sense of personal power that no one can take away from you. You must also prepare for resistance. The moment you decide and act, life will test you. Doubt may try to return through setbacks or challenges. That's natural. But once you've taken action, the test becomes manageable. You can adjust, adapt, and keep moving. Without action, there is nothing to adjust. You're left with only ideas and what-ifs. Real growth happens in execution, not speculation. Sometimes doubt hides behind the need for more information. People say, I need to study more, I need to learn more before I start. But often, they already know enough to begin. The search for more knowledge becomes a delay tactic. Yes, learning is important, but learning without action is useless. The best learning happens in the doing. When you move, you discover what actually works. Knowledge becomes wisdom only when it's applied. A powerful way to overcome doubt is to create small wins quickly. If your decision is to get in shape, start with a simple workout today and complete it. That small win reinforces the decision. If your decision is to manage your time better, schedule and complete one focused block of work. Each win is proof. Proof destroys doubt. Doubt feeds on uncertainty, but action creates certainty. You must also learn to separate your identity from your mistakes. Many people hesitate to act on their decisions because they fear making mistakes. But mistakes are not the end. They are part of the process. If you tie your self-worth to being perfect, you will delay forever. If you accept mistakes as feedback, you will act faster and grow stronger. Doubt thrives on the fear of imperfection. Action thrives on the courage to improve along the way. Another element is urgency. Without urgency, decisions fade. You need to create deadlines and treat them seriously. Decide today, act today. The longer you leave space between decision and execution, the greater the chance doubt will creep in. Shrink that space until it disappears. When you decide, you move. That rhythm builds momentum and keeps you from slipping back into hesitation. Look back at your own life and identify decisions you once made but never acted on. Where are they now? Most likely, they're buried under layers of doubt and delay. That's the cost of not acting quickly. Now think of times when you acted immediately. Those actions, however small, shaped your path. They opened doors and created opportunities. That is the evidence you need. Immediate action produces progress, while delay produces regret. The truth is simple. Every clear decision loses power with time. Doubt grows stronger with every minute you delay. The way to win is to eliminate that delay. Attach action to your decision right away. Don't give doubt a chance to breathe. Action is the cure for hesitation. Action is the proof of commitment. Action is the shield against doubt. So turn clear decisions into action before doubt slows you down. Stop giving your mind room to weaken your resolve. When the choice is clear, move. Protect the energy of that clarity by acting quickly. Build the habit of immediate follow-through, and soon your life will be filled with evidence of progress instead of piles of abandoned decisions. Your future depends not on how many decisions you make, but on how many you act on before doubt takes them away.
Chapter 7. Beat failure by shrinking the time between knowing and doing. Failure often doesn't come from not knowing what to do. Most people already know the steps they should be taking to improve their health, grow their income, build better relationships, or strengthen their character. The problem is not a lack of knowledge, it's the delay between knowing and doing. Every time you wait, every time you pause, every time you tell yourself I'll start later, you open the door for failure to creep in. The longer that gap remains, the more doubt, distraction, and excuses fill the space. If you want to beat failure, you must shrink that time until it almost disappears. The shorter the distance between knowing and doing, the greater your chance of success. Think about how life works in real time. You learn something useful. At that moment, the energy is strong. You're motivated, clear, and ready. But then the seconds start passing. You hesitate. You question yourself. You wonder if it's the right time. You think about whether you'll be able to stick with it. That hesitation becomes minutes. Those minutes become hours, and suddenly you've lost the drive you had. The decision dies, not because it was wrong, but because you gave it too much space. Knowledge without quick execution turns into wasted potential. The people who make progress are not always the smartest or most talented. They're the ones who act faster on what they know. They don't leave room for delay to steal their momentum. When they learn something, they practice it. When they decide on a change, they begin immediately. They understand that hesitation is the enemy of execution. By shrinking the time between knowing and doing, they protect their dreams from being stolen by procrastination. Failure loves people who wait. Waiting gives it ground to grow. Every time you put off action, failure gains strength. The habit of waiting becomes the habit of losing. On the other hand, when you respond quickly to what you know, you starve failure. You don't give it oxygen. You build momentum instead. That momentum compounds day after day, until your results are too strong to ignore. There's also a psychological reason why shrinking the gap works. The mind creates resistance when you delay. The longer you wait, the more complicated things feel. What seemed simple yesterday feels heavy today. What felt urgent yesterday feels optional today. This is how dreams disappear, not through one big mistake, but through repeated delays. But when you act quickly, you don't give the mind time to build resistance. You step in before excuses show up. Action makes the resistance weaker, not stronger. You can test this in your own life. Think about the times you moved immediately on what you knew. Maybe you had an idea and acted right away. Maybe you decided to improve something and began within the hour. How did it feel? It felt freeing. It felt like momentum was on your side. Now think about the times you delayed. How did those feel? Heavy, frustrating, like you were stuck in the same loop of thinking but never moving. That difference is the proof. Shrinking the gap is not about working harder, it's about working sooner. To beat failure, you must create a personal rule: never leave knowledge unused. If you hear something valuable, apply it the same day. If you discover a step you need to take, schedule it right away. If you decide on a change, make the first move before the day ends. Don't carry knowledge for weeks, months, or years without act. Every day you delay is another day of missed opportunity. Failure is not final when you act quickly. Quick action gives you feedback. If you try and it doesn't work, you can adjust, learn, and grow. But when you delay, you don't even get the chance to fail productively. You stay stuck in the safety of knowing without doing, which is the most dangerous place to live.
The safety is false because it keeps you trapped. You're not failing visibly, but you're failing silently by never moving. Another truth is that shrinking the gap builds confidence. Each time you act quickly, you show yourself that you are capable of movement. That self-trust grows stronger the more you practice it. When you delay, you weaken that trust. You start doubting whether you'll ever follow through. Doubt piles on top of delay, and soon you're buried under a pattern of inaction. But when you shrink the time between knowing and doing, you build proof that you can rely on yourself. That proof is the foundation of self-confidence. It's important to also recognize how shrinking the gap builds discipline. Discipline is not about forcing yourself to do massive tasks. It's about training yourself to respond quickly. The discipline is in the if you can shorten the time between decision and action, discipline becomes easier. You don't give your emotions time to argue. You don't allow your mood to interfere. You train yourself to act regardless of how you feel. That's what makes discipline strong. Look at successful people in any area. They don't just know what to do. They respond quickly to what they know. Athletes train as soon as they understand what needs improvement. Entrepreneurs test ideas the moment they see the opportunity. Leaders make calls when clarity strikes. They don't sit and wait. That immediacy is what separates them from the crowd. The world is full of people who know what to do but never act. Those who shrink the gap move ahead, while everyone else is still thinking. Another benefit of acting quickly is that it builds momentum. Momentum is the hidden force behind success. When you start moving, the energy pushes you forward. One action leads to another, but when you wait, you lose that energy. Starting becomes harder the longer you delay. This is why people can plan for months but still fail to start. They lose the initial spark because they stretched the gap too far. Acting quickly keeps the spark alive. Shrinking the gap also protects you from regret. Nothing feels worse than knowing you should have acted sooner. Regret is heavy because it reminds you of wasted time. But when you act quickly, even if the outcome isn't perfect, you avoid regret. You know you gave yourself a chance. You know you tried. That knowledge creates peace of mind. Delaying may feel comfortable in the short term, but it guarantees regret in the long term. Quick action may feel uncomfortable in the short term, but it guarantees growth in the long term. The practical way to shrink the gap is to practice immediacy with small things. If you learn something useful in a book, apply one piece of it before the day ends. If someone gives you advice, test it instead of just agreeing. If you have an idea, write it down and take one action toward it. These small moments train you. Over time, responding quickly becomes your natural behavior. Then when bigger opportunities come, you'll already be conditioned to move. Don't make the mistake of thinking you need perfect knowledge before you act. Perfect knowledge doesn't exist. Waiting until you know everything only increases the gap. Start with what you have. The best way to learn more is to act on what you already know. Action teaches lessons that thinking never will. You discover what works by doing, not by endlessly preparing. Consider how different your life would look if you always acted quickly on what you knew. How many goals would you have already reached? How many opportunities would you have seen? How many regrets would you have avoided? The difference between where you are and where you could be lies in that small gap. Close it, and you close the distance to your dreams. Failure is not something that happens only at the end of the road. Failure happens every day in small doses when you delay action. Success, on the other hand, is built every day in small doses when you act quickly. These daily choices compound. Over time, they create entirely different lives. Two people with the same knowledge can end up in completely different places, simply because one acted faster. So beat failure by shrinking the time between knowing and doing. Refuse to carry knowledge without applying it. Refuse to let opportunities fade while you hesitate. Refuse to let delay write your story. When you know, act. When you decide, move. When you learn, apply. Shrink the gap until there's no room for failure to enter. That's how you build momentum, discipline, confidence, and progress. That's how you protect your dreams from disappearing.
Chapter 8. Make progress by applying knowledge faster than excuses appear. Progress doesn't come from knowing more. It comes from acting on what you already know before excuses have the chance to form. Excuses are quick. They appear the moment you think about change. You decide to do something, and almost instantly your mind offers reasons why you can't, why you should wait, or why it isn't the right time. If you pause long enough to listen, excuses win. If you act faster than they arrive, you win. The difference between the two outcomes is measured in seconds, not years. Knowledge, by itself, can be comforting. It gives you the sense that you're preparing, that you're ready, that you're equipped, but knowledge without speed becomes stale. The mind always finds a way to argue against action if you leave room for delay. Excuses are creative. They'll tell you that you're too tired, that you don't have enough money, that you don't have enough time, that you don't have enough talent. They multiply with every second you wait. That's why the only way to make progress is to attach knowledge to action immediately. The quicker you apply it, the less power excuses have to influence you. Look at how this works in daily life. You read about a strategy for better focus. At that moment, you're inspired. But if you wait until tomorrow, excuses creep in. Suddenly, you're telling yourself you have too much on your plate, or that you'll try it after things calm down. Before long, the knowledge you once felt excited about has been buried under layers of avoidance. The truth is, you didn't lose the knowledge, you lost the fight against excuses. And once you lose that fight enough times, you train yourself to settle. Now imagine the other path. You learn something useful and you apply it right away. No delay, no debate. You take the advice, test it, and see how it works. The excuses never had time to speak. You built momentum before resistance could gather strength. That's how progress happens, by moving faster than the excuses can appear. Progress is not about giant leaps. It's about small, immediate actions, repeated often enough to leave excuses behind. Most people don't realize how fast excuses grow. They don't just appear once, they expand the longer you wait. At first, the excuse is small. I'll do it later. Then it grows. Maybe I'm not ready. Then it grows more. I don't think I can succeed. What was once a simple task becomes an impossible challenge in your mind, all because you gave excuses time to build a case. The only way to stop that chain is to act so quickly that the excuses never have the chance to argue. This principle applies everywhere. You know eating healthier will improve your energy. If you wait, you'll tell yourself it's too expensive or too inconvenient. But if you act fast, you'll make a better choice at the next meal. You know saving money will secure your future. If you delay, you'll find reasons to spend instead. But if you set aside something immediately, the excuse loses power. You know learning a new skill will advance your career. If you pause, you'll convince yourself you're too old or too busy. But if you begin today, excuses don't stand a chance. The faster you act, the stronger your confidence becomes. Each time you apply knowledge right away, you prove to yourself that you can move before fear and doubt set in. That proof builds belief. Belief builds discipline. Discipline builds consistency. And consistency builds result. But it all begins with acting faster than excuses. The delay is where confidence dies. The immediacy is where confidence is born. Excuses also feed on comfort. They try to persuade you to choose what feels easy now over what builds you later. That's why you must act before comfort speaks. If you decide to exercise, don't wait until later in the day, when excuses about being tired will show up. Act now while the decision is fresh. If you decide to work on your goals, don't open distractions that will make excuses more convincing. Move straight into action so the comfort of avoidance never gets the chance to win. Progress is a race between excuses and execution. Excuses don't need much time, they're fast, but action is faster if you commit to moving first. This is why some people seem unstoppable. They aren't without excuses, they just don't let them arrive.
They've built the reflex of acting quickly on knowledge. Their excuses are left behind because they never get invited into the conversation. A practical way to apply this is to shorten the time between learning and doing. If you learn something today, commit to testing it today. If you make a decision, attach action to it immediately. The rule is simple: never give excuses a window. The moment you know, move. Even if it's just a small step, that step shuts the door on excuses. Excuses also thrive on repetition. If you've delayed something once, it's easier to delay it again. Soon you've built a pattern of postponement. That pattern can last for years, but acting quickly breaks the pattern. Each time you apply knowledge before excuses arrive, you interrupt the cycle. You begin building a new identity, not as someone who delays, but as someone who moves. That identity shift is powerful. You no longer see yourself as a talker. You see yourself as a doer. Look at the areas of your life where you've been stuck. Chances are, the knowledge has been there all along. You've read about what to do. You've thought about what to do, but you haven't acted fast enough to beat the excuses. That's the real barrier. Once you accept this, you gain control. The solution is not to gather more knowledge, it's to shorten the time between knowing and doing. The faster you apply, the less time excuses have to grow. Excuses are also clever at disguising themselves as logic. They don't always sound like excuses. They sound like being practical, or waiting for the right moment. But if the knowledge is clear, then waiting is just hesitation, in disguise. Don't fall for it. Progress never comes from perfect timing. It comes from acting in imperfect conditions. The right time to act is the moment you know what to do. When you beat excuses with speed, you also unlock resilience. Action teaches you how to adapt. Even if your first step isn't perfect, you learn something from it. That lesson strengthens you for the next move. But if you wait, you learn nothing. You stay stuck in the safety of thought. Action creates growth. Excuses keep you in the same place. You must train yourself like an athlete trains reflexes. Athletes don't wait to think in the middle of a game. They respond instantly because they've trained their bodies to act. You need to do the same with your decision. Condition yourself to respond quickly to knowledge. When you decide, act before you think yourself out of it. Over time, this becomes automatic. You'll feel the urge to delay, but your habit will push you to act first. That's how you retrain your psychology. Another truth is that excuses will never fully disappear. They'll always try to appear, but their power is only as strong as the time you give them. If you move quickly, their voice is weak. If you delay, their voice is loud. Progress is about making sure your action is louder than your excuses. The balance of power is always in your hands. So how do you make this real? Start with small tests. The next time you catch yourself thinking I should do this, act before the thought fades. Don't let the excuse arrive. The more often you practice this, the stronger the habit becomes. Soon you won't even think about delaying. You'll have conditioned yourself to move first and question later. That habit will transform your life faster than any amount of planning ever could. Think about how much progress you've already lost because you gave excuses time to appear. Now imagine how much progress you could gain if you acted before they showed up. The difference is enormous. It's the difference between living with regret and living with results. Excuses take your future away slowly, one hesitation at a time. Speed gives your future back, one action at a time. So make progress by applying knowledge faster than excuses appear. Stop letting hesitation steal your momentum. Stop allowing delay to build walls between you and your goals. Knowledge has power only when it's applied, and application must come before excuses arrive. Train yourself to move first. Build a life where your actions outrun your doubts. Progress belongs to the person who moves quicker than their excuses, and that person can be you. Starting right now.
Chapter 9. Save your dreams by practicing what you already understand. Most people already know enough to change their lives. They've read the books,
listened to advice and learned the principles. They understand the basics of health, success, relationships, and personal growth. The problem isn't a lack of understanding, it's the lack of practice. Knowledge without practice fades, but knowledge with practice becomes strength. If you want to protect your dreams, you must use what you already understand. You don't need more theories. You don't need endless preparation. You need practice. Repetition of the fundamentals is what keeps your dream alive and makes it grow into reality. Dreams disappear when people keep searching for something new instead of working with what they already have. They believe the answer lies in the next book, the next seminar, or the next piece of advice. But the truth is, the answer has been in front of them all along. You already know that consistency creates results. You already know that saving builds wealth. You already know that discipline improves character. The challenge is not in knowing, but in practicing until it becomes a way of life. Dreams die when knowledge is left sitting in the mind, untouched by action. Practice is what separates those who succeed from those who only dream. Everyone has ideas, but few have the patience and discipline to put those ideas into daily practice. It's easy to say you want to get better. It's harder to show up each day and apply the simple steps you already know. Success isn't hidden in secrets. It's built through practicing the basics repeatedly until they become second nature. When you practice what you understand, you move from wishing for your dream to working for it. That shift saves your dream from fading into frustration. Consider the way habits are built. Habits don't come from knowing, they come from doing. You can understand the importance of exercise, but until you practice it consistently, your health won't change. You can understand the value of communication, but until you practice listening and speaking with care, your relationships won't improve. You can understand the meaning of discipline, but until you practice it in daily decisions, your life won't transform. Practice is the bridge that carries knowledge into results. Without it, knowledge is wasted potential. Practicing what you already understand also protects you from overwhelm. Many people lose their dreams because they collect too much information and become paralyzed. They think they need to master everything before they can start. But you don't need to master everything. You need to practice the few things you already know matter most. If you understand that daily effort builds progress, practice. If you understand that focus beats distraction, practice that. Don't complicate it. Simplicity practiced is more powerful than complexity ignored. The key is consistency. Sporadic practice keeps you stuck. Consistent practice moves you forward. Think about learning an instrument. If you only practice once a month, you never improve. But if you practice a little each day, you grow stronger. Life works the same way. Your dream doesn't need occasional bursts of energy. It needs steady practice of what you already know. Even small efforts, if repeated daily, protect your dream from dying out. There's also a deep psychological benefit to practice. Every time you act on what you know, you reinforce your self-belief. You remind yourself that you are capable of living your values. This builds confidence. On the other hand, when you keep knowing without practicing, you create inner conflict. You know what's right, but you're not living it. That conflict leads to guilt, frustration, and self-doubt. Over time, it erodes your self-respect. Practicing what you know restores integrity. Your words, thoughts, and actions align. That alignment gives you power. Another truth is that practice creates mastery. Many people give up on their dreams because they expect perfection too early. They want to be great from the beginning, but greatness comes from practice. When you practice what you know, you get better with time. Each repetition sharpens your skill. Each effort makes the action easier. Each attempt brings improvement. Dreams survive because you're willing to practice through the imperfections, not because you achieve perfection instantly. You must also understand that practice is not about excitement. Knowledge can excite you, but practice often feels ordinary. It doesn't always give you a thrill. It feels repetitive, sometimes even boring. That's why so many people abandon it. But if you stay committed, the ordinary effort becomes extraordinary results. Practice is not glamorous, but it is powerful. It builds the foundation on which your dream can stand. Ask yourself this: what do you already understand that you're not practicing? You probably know more than enough to get started. You don't need another reminder. You don't need another plan. You need practice. Write down one thing you've known for a long time, but have failed to practice. Then commit to practicing it today. Even if it's small, it counts. That's how dreams are saved, by turning neglected knowledge into consistent practice. Excuses often stop people from practicing. They say they don't have time, they don't have the right resources, or they're not ready. But practice doesn't require perfection. It requires starting where you are. If you want to improve your finances, start practicing discipline with the money you already have. If you want to get in shape, start practicing movement with the body you have now. If you want to grow your mind, start practicing with the books and tools already available to you. Waiting for ideal conditions only wastes time. Using what you have today keeps your dream alive. Another benefit of practice is that it builds momentum. Once you start practicing, progress begins to show. Even small progress fuels motivation. That motivation makes it easier to practice again tomorrow. Soon the habit is strong. The cycle of practice and progress keeps your dream alive and growing. Without practice, there's no progress. Without progress, your dream withers. Momentum is built through practice, not through endless thinking. You also save your dreams by practicing, because practice builds resilience. Every dream will face setbacks. Without practice, setbacks feel like the end. But with practice, setbacks become lessons. You've built the habit of persistence, so you keep going even when it's tough. That resilience is what protects your dream. When challenges come, knowledge alone won't protect you. Practice will. Another reason practice is powerful is that it transforms identity. When you practice regularly, you stop seeing yourself as someone who is just learning. You begin to see yourself as someone who lives the principle. For example, when you practice discipline, you no longer just understand discipline. You become disciplined. When you practice focus, you no longer just know about focus. You are focused. Your identity shifts from being a dreamer to being a doer. That identity shift is what makes your dream possible. Look around at those who have achieved their goals. You'll see a common pattern. They didn't simply know more. They practiced more. They practiced daily, even when it wasn't convenient, even when it wasn't easy, even when it wasn't exciting. They saved their dreams by honoring what they already understood. They didn't waste time chasing secrets. They put into action the truths they already knew. That is why they succeeded while others stayed stuck. Saving your dream isn't about waiting for luck. It's about practicing daily actions that keep it alive. If you want a strong body, practice health. If you want financial stability, practice discipline with money. If you want meaningful relationships, practice kindness and attention. If you want growth, practice learning and applying. It's not complicated. It's about choosing to live your knowledge instead of letting it gather dust. You don't need to feel inspired every day to practice. Inspiration comes and goes. What matters is the choice to show up. If you practice even when you don't feel like it, you build strength. That strength will carry your dream when motivation fades. Dreams don't survive on emotion. They survive on discipline. And discipline is built through practice. Think about what your life would look like if you consistently practiced what you already know. The changes would be enormous. Your health would improve. Your finances would grow, your relationships would strengthen, and your confidence would soar. All because you decided to stop seeking more information and started practicing the truths you've known all along. So save your dreams by practicing what you already understand. Stop postponing, stop searching endlessly, stop waiting for perfect conditions. You have enough knowledge right now to begin. Use it, live it, repeat it daily. The practice will protect your dream, nurture it, and transform it into reality. Your dream is worth saving, and the way you save it is by practicing again and again until it becomes who you are.
Chapter 10. Transform potential into reality. By closing the action gap. Every person carries potential. Potential is the ability, the talent, the possibility of achieving something greater than what exists today. But potential by itself is not enough. Potential is silent until it's activated. Many people live their whole lives with remarkable potential inside them, yet they never bring it into reality. The reason is simple. They leave too much space between what they know and what they do. This space is the action gap, and until it's closed, potential remains locked away. The only way to transform potential into reality is by shutting that gap with consistent, deliberate action. You've seen this truth play out. You've met people who were intelligent, creative, or skilled, yet years later, nothing changed in their lives. Their potential was obvious, but it never turned into results. Why? Because they thought potential was enough. They assumed that because they had talent, opportunity would fall into place. But opportunity rewards execution, not possibility. Potential is only valuable when it's translated into performance. Without closing the action gap, potential is wasted. The action gap appears the moment you understand what needs to be done, but fail to move. You know you should apply for the job, but you wait. You know you should have that conversation, but you avoid it. You know you should commit to the routine, but you push it off. Knowledge accumulates, but without application, nothing in your life changes. That gap becomes the graveyard of your potential. You may have dreams that feel real in your mind, but unless you act, they remain imaginary. Closing the action gap is about shortening the time between intention and execution. If you decide, move. If you learn, apply. If you commit, follow through. Every second you leave open between these steps invites distraction, excuses, and doubt. The faster you close the gap, the more your potential becomes visible in your result. Success is not a mystery. It's the consistent practice of closing that gap until your life reflects what you're truly capable of. Consider athletes. Many gifted athletes never become champions because they rely only on natural talent. Others, who may not have had the same level of potential, close the gap with relentless work. They train when they don't feel like it. They execute their plans day after day. Over time, the one who acted consistently outpaces the one who only relied on potential. Talent without action stalls. Action without talent grows. But talent with action, that combination is unstoppable. The same principle applies to every area of life. You might have the potential to be financially free, but if you don't take daily disciplined steps with your money, that potential never turns into reality. You might have the potential to build deep, meaningful relationships, but if you don't practice honesty, listening, and presence, those relationships never grow. You might have the potential to master a skill, but if you don't practice, the potential withers. Dreams are not lost because people lack potential. They are lost because people fail to close the action gap. One of the traps that keeps people from closing the gap is waiting for motivation. They think they need to feel inspired before acting, but motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. If you depend on it, your actions will always be inconsistent. The truth is, action produces motivation, not the other way around. When you move, you create energy. When you wait,
you drain it. If you want to close the action gap, stop waiting for the perfect move. Act regardless of how you feel, and the momentum will follow. Another trap is perfectionism. Many people keep their potential locked away because they want to act perfectly, or not at all. They hold back, telling themselves they'll start when the conditions are flawless. But perfect conditions never arrive. If you keep waiting, you'll wait forever. Closing the action gap means accepting imperfection. Start messy. Start small. But start. Each action teaches you something new. With every step, your potential sharpens. Perfection doesn't create growth. Practice does. To transform potential into reality, you also need discipline. Discipline is the bridge between knowledge and results. Without it, your potential will always be stuck in the realm of good intentions. Discipline is built by doing what you said you would do, even when it's uncomfortable. Every act of discipline shrinks the action gap. Each time you follow through, you strengthen the habit of execution. Over time, that habit makes action automatic. When action becomes automatic, potential flows naturally into achievement. It's also essential to focus on consistency, not intensity. Many people burst into action for a short time, but quickly burn out. They confuse intensity with transformation. Real change doesn't come from one huge effort. It comes from repeated action over time. If you write 1 page every day, eventually you'll have a book. If you save a small amount each week, eventually you'll build wealth. If you practice your skill daily, eventually you'll master it. Small, consistent actions accumulate until your potential takes form in reality. Self-respect is another factor in closing the action gap. When you know what to do, but don't act, you lose trust in yourself. You start to feel weak, disappointed, and frustrated. But when you act on your knowledge, you gain respect for yourself. You prove that your word has weight. That respect builds confidence, and confidence gives you the strength to keep moving. Each action restores the belief that you can rely on yourself, and that belief fuels greater results. Think about the cost of leaving your potential unused. Potential without action becomes regret. People reach later stages of life and realize they could have done more, but they didn't. They knew what they needed to do, but they delayed. They had dreams, but they never turned them into action. That regret is heavy, because you can't go back and reclaim lost years. The only way to avoid it is to close the gap now. Don't let your potential die in your mind. Bring it into reality while you still can. Another key to closing the gap is urgency. Treat your goals like they matter now, not someday. Too many people live with a someday mindset. Someday I'll write the book. Someday I'll start the business. Someday I'll get healthy. But someday is a trap. It convinces you there's more time than there really is. Life is shorter than you think. Every day you delay is a day you can't get back. Urgency pushes you to act while you still have the chance. If you want your potential to become real, treat today as the only time you have. You must also create systems to support your actions. Willpower alone is not enough to close the gap. Build routines that lock in behavior. Set deadlines that force execution. Remove distractions that steal focus. Surround yourself with people who push you to act, not people who let you stay comfortable. Your environment either widens or shrinks the action gap. Design it to work in your favor. Reflect for a moment on the areas where you've left potential unused. Where have you known the answer, but failed to act? Where have you delayed, postponed, or avoided? That is the gap you must close. Don't overcomplicate it. Choose one step and move today. Action is always the cure. Even the smallest movement brings your potential closer to reality. When you begin living this way, your life changes. You no longer measure yourself only by what you know or what you dream. You measure yourself by what you do. That shift transforms potential into reality. The dream that once felt far away becomes something you can see, touch, and live, all because you stopped leaving space for hesitation. You close the action gap. Your potential is not meant to stay hidden. It's meant to be lived, expressed, and realized. But that will only happen if you act. Don't wait for more knowledge. Don't wait for better timing. Don't wait for permission. You already have enough to start. The bridge between who you are and who you can become is action. Cross it now. Transform potential into reality by closing the action gap. Protect your dreams by refusing to leave knowledge unused. Move quickly, move consistently, and move with discipline. The life you want is not locked away in more information. It's unlocked through the actions you take today. Shrink the gap until it's gone, and watch your potential turn into the reality you've always wanted.